Now, for some reason, Glenn Beck is still somehow taken seriously by some members of the media. Now, I don't quite understand why, but anyway, he was recently on CNN with Chris Cuomo, basically talking about his little beef with Donald Trump. And here's Chris Cuomo going to ask a very excellent question. Watch.
Well, but here's the thing. Is there a little bit of reap what you sow in some of this for the GOP, that engendering an oppositional mode towards government, in ratcheting up negativity as a mainline discourse, you wound up somewhat birthing Donald Trump, and now some of those people who were angry about what was going on and telling people to be angry, now they've got somebody who's harnessing the power of exactly that, and you're disappointed.
Well, I'm not disappointed. I've warned against this. I mean, you go back on my shows on Fox, and I warned the progressive movement, and that's what this is. Donald Trump is a progressive, make no mistake.
Donald Trump is a progressive? Wait, hold on there, bud. Whoa. On what planet? On what planet is Donald Trump a progressive? Trump is for rich people, like himself. He says he loves the Bible, but really doesn't. And he also hates immigrants. You remember that time when he called Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals? You remember that time? See, that's not progressive. That kind of sounds a lot like you, Glenn. All right. But hey, look, maybe I just need to hear Glenn out just a little bit more on why Trump is, in his words, a progressive.
He believes in the power of the pen. I don't. Those who stood for the Tea Party and actually really believed in it were standing for constitutional principles. Now, are there those in the Republican Party that believe in the executive power more than the constitutional power? Yes. The Progressive Party was started by Theodore Roosevelt. He was started by a Republican. So this idea of an ever-expanding power inside the presidency is something that both parties have.
So Trump is a progressive because he believes in the power of the pen, right? And apparently so do liberals. No. See, as a liberal, I actually would like the Congress to do its fucking job. Pass bills to, make this country better for people, not just corporations or the super wealthy. I want them to do their job. That doesn't mean I believe in the power of the pen or giving the president too much executive power. We do believe in the separation of powers. But in order to have that, you actually have to have a functioning body in Congress. And right now, you can be sure that the congressional body is not at all functional. Anyway, so he also points out, well, the Progressive Party, right? That's started by a Republican. Really? That's your argument? That's your argument. You do realize the party switched during the 1960s, right? The progressives joined the Democratic Party in arguing for civil rights, and conservatives, along with the racists and the financiers, ended up joining the Republican Party. Jesus Christ, man, have you ever picked up a history book? You know what the fuck you're talking about? Apparently you do not. All right. Now, finally, Glenn Beck is actually going to get to Bernie Sanders. Now, this will be interesting. Take a listen to this.
Donald Trump said that I would vote for Bernie Sanders over Donald Trump. Absolutely not what I said.
Right.
Here's what I did say this weekend.
What did you say?
I said that Bernie Sanders is at least honest about who he is. And I've said this for years. I actually have respect for Bernie Sanders because he's not afraid to say, I'm a socialist and I think we should be more like Denmark. Now, I disagree with that, vehemently disagree with that, but I respect Bernie Sanders for having the guts to tell the truth. So I really, truly believe where America really is not with Hillary Clinton and the soft, I don't even know what she is, not with the anger of Donald Trump. What the real question that is before America is this. Do we believe in socialism or constitutionalism? Those should be the two candidates in the United States of America, and let the people decide. Are we going socialist or back to the Constitution? That's a fair and honest debate.
That's a fair and honest debate. You know what? Actually, no. And Glenn,
Stop it.
you just need to stop it. That's a ridiculous argument. That's a ridiculous question. And it's not even really a debate. You see, you don't even realize that those two things are not mutually exclusive. Besides, also, you forgot to add the whole democratic when you talk about Bernie Sanders' socialism, right? So here's the question, right? Fine, you want to have a debate? Should we be more like Denmark? All right, let's have a debate. According to Heritage, yes, I'm going to start a debate with facts. According to Heritage, yes, the Heritage Foundation, that Heritage Foundation, Denmark is considered more economically free than the United States. They are ranked number 11 in the Freedom Index. The United States is ranked number 12. Well, now wait a minute. How can a socialist country, with all those socialists and all that socialism, be more economically free than America? The same America that practices free market capitalism. How is that possible? It's because democratic socialism is simply a way to keep unregulated predatory capitalism in check. It's a balance. One big factor in democratic socialism that is different than pure socialism and communism is the idea of property rights. Now, Glenn Beck fancies himself a libertarian conservative, right, or a constitutional conservative. So, understandably, he's a guy that's big into property rights, right? Well, under a socialist or a communist system, which he alleges that Bernie Sanders believes in, you don't have property rights. Well, so let's look at property rights in the so-called socialist countries, right? Now, this is according to the International Property Rights Index for 2015. Now, let me break this down on what these rankings mean before I actually get into the numbers. Now, it ranks countries, right, by three different components: legal and political environment, physical property rights, and intellectual property rights, right? It takes all those three things into account in order to make a ranking. Now, there are also sub-rankings in this, or sub-components. The legal and political environment component features four different subcomponents: judicial independence, rule of law, political stability, and control of corruption. Now, the physical property rights component has three different subcomponents: property rights, registering property, and ease of access to loans. You got to have loans, right? If you want to start a business, you got to be able to get a loan. Lastly, the intellectual property rights component features three subcomponents: intellectual property protection, patent protection, and copyright piracy level. So now that you know a little bit more about the index and how these countries are ranked, I can now show you why Glenn Beck is an idiot, and that he has no idea what democratic socialism is. Now, according to the index, Denmark ranks 11 out of 129 countries in the area of property rights. Remember, a higher ranking is better. The United States ranks about 15. Not only that, but the leading countries with the highest amount of property right protections in 2015 was as follows. Number 1, Finland, socialist. Number 2, Norway, socialist. 3, New Zealand, socialist. 4, Luxembourg, socialist. And 5, oddly enough, is Singapore, which I don't know if they're socialist or not. So you have at least the top 4 countries that practice the type of socialism Glenn Beck fears, which is democratic socialism, which is exactly what Bernie Sanders is calling for in America. You see, these are the types of facts that when you present it to people in a context and nuanced way, they look at it and they go, oh, I guess democratic socialism isn't so scary after all. And this is the type of system that leads to happier, more productive, and higher educated citizens. And yet, often the economy in these places actually does pretty well because they have a larger middle class. Yes, taxes are a little bit higher, of course, but you actually, unlike America, you actually get something in return for your taxes. Now, right now, in America, the middle class pays taxes to cover what the corporations don't. The corporations don't pay their taxes So that falls onto you to pay for them. In Denmark, Finland, and Norway, you pay your taxes and you're getting something back. Not to mention, it also benefits the rest of society. You're getting something for your higher taxes. There's a big difference, right? Now back to the original issue of Trump, right? See, they were talking about anger. That's what this whole thing was about. Anger. Well, Trump supporters, those are the people who feel like they're screwed over, right? And that we're left behind by an economy that only serves the rich. This is what we have in America. Now, the thing about Trump is that he tells these people, well, you're being screwed over because of the Mexicans. You're being screwed over because of the Chinese. It's always the other. You're being screwed over by other Americans. And not just foreigners, but other Americans as well. So you should hate them. You should hate the people who are the powerless, right? And see, that kind of rhetoric is exactly the thing that Glenn Beck and others like him have had a hand in calling for. At the end of the day, Chris Cuomo is right. You do reap what you sow.